They called him the Golden Boy, heir to a billionaire empire, born into a life where nothing was ever out of reach. But behind the designer suits and private school gates, there was a truth no one dared to say out loud. He failed at everything that mattered. Every exam, every project, every challenge. His grades were a string of red marks. His father's patience was wearing thin, and whispers followed him down every hallway. For a boy who had every advantage, failure was the one thing he couldn't escape. The pressure at home was suffocating. His father had built an empire from the ground up, a man who believed that success was the only measure of worth. But his son's failures became a shadow on the family name. Teachers gave up, tutors quit, and even friends began to drift away. Then, one quiet afternoon, while hiding out in an empty hallway after another disastrous test, he met someone no one would have expected to change his life. The school janitor. He wasn't rich, he didn't have fancy degrees. But there was a calm in his voice and a wisdom in his eyes that made the boy pause. In just a few words, the janitor promised to tell him one secret, a secret that, if he truly understood it, could change everything. That moment would set them both on a path no one saw coming. And it all began with a broom in one hand and a lesson in the other. The janitor's name was Mr. Carter, a quiet man who'd been at the school longer than most of the teachers. Students passed him every day without a second glance, but he noticed everything: who walked with their head high, who avoided eye contact, and who was carrying more weight than their backpack could hold. He had a way of listening that made you feel like your words actually mattered. And for the billionaire's son, that was new. They began talking in stolen moments between classes. After the halls had emptied, sometimes in the quiet hum of the janitor's closet where the smell of floor polish mixed with the scent of strong coffee, Mr. Carter never lectured. He asked questions. Strange questions. What's the one thing you can do better than anyone else in this school? When was the last time you actually wanted to learn something? The boy never had good answers, but for some reason, he kept coming back. Word about their conversations started to spread, and not everyone liked it. Teachers were puzzled. His father, if he found out, would be furious that his son was wasting time with a janitor instead of studying with elite tutors. But Mr. Carter didn't seem worried. One afternoon, as the boy sat on an overturned bucket, Mr. Carter leaned in and said, "You've been looking for the wrong thing your whole life." The boy's heart thudded. "What do you mean?" Mr. Carter smiled, but didn't answer. "When you're ready, I'll tell you the secret." The days that followed only made the boy more restless. Every time he saw Mr. Carter pushing his mop cart down the hall, the unspoken secret hung between them like a locked door. He tried to focus on his classes, but each red mark on his papers felt heavier now, as if he knew he was missing something far bigger than a passing grade. His father's voice at dinner grew sharper, reminding him that the family's reputation was on the line. The boy stopped talking much at home. Meanwhile, the whispers at school deepened. Some students teased him for taking advice from a janitor, while others were quietly curious. One girl from his class, Maya, started sitting near him in the library. She didn't ask about Mr. Carter at first, but she shared her own struggles with a strict family and impossible expectations. For the first time, the boy felt less alone, though he still didn't understand why Mr. Carter kept holding back the answer. One rainy afternoon, the boy finally snapped. "Why can't you just tell me the secret now?" he demanded. Mr. Carter looked at him for a long moment. "Because if I give it to you before you're ready, it'll just be words, and words fade. You need to see it for yourself." The frustration burned in him, but there was also a strange pull, a sense that this secret wasn't just about school. It might change the way he saw everything, and maybe everyone. The pressure around him was closing in from all sides. Midterm exams were coming, and his father had already warned him that this was his last chance. Teachers watched him with doubtful eyes, convinced he was headed for another failure. At night, he lay awake, replaying Mr. Carter's words, wondering what could possibly be so powerful that it had to be earned, not told. One evening, he found Mr. Carter alone in the gym, sweeping under the bleachers. The boy hesitated, then blurted out, "I can't keep failing. I can't keep being this." His voice cracked, and for a moment, the weight he'd been carrying slipped into the open. Mr. Carter didn't answer right away. He just motioned for the boy to follow him. They walked through empty hallways, until they reached a part of the school the boy had never noticed, a small storage room at the very back. Inside there was nothing but an old wooden desk, a single chair, and a dusty mirror leaning against the wall. The air was still, almost heavy. "This is where you'll find it," Mr. Carter said quietly. "But you have to stay until you understand." The boy frowned, confused. "Understand what?" Mr. Carter placed the broom in the boy's hands. "It's not about what you see here, it's about what you'll see in yourself." The door clicked shut behind him, leaving the boy alone. Staring at his own reflection, and realizing this might be the moment everything changes, the room felt smaller the longer he stood there. The mirror's dusty surface caught the dim light, throwing back a blurred version of his face, tired eyes, slouched shoulders, the weight of too many failures pressing down. He gripped the broom without knowing why, hearing the faint echo of Mr. Carter's footsteps fade down the hall. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time seemed strange here. Then, just as he was about to give up and leave, the door creaked open, but it wasn't Mr. Carter. Maya stepped inside, her eyes wide, holding a crumpled note. "I wasn't supposed to see this," she whispered, handing it to him. In shaky handwriting, it read, **, he doesn't have much time. If he doesn't learn the secret now, he'll lose everything. **, his pulse quickened. What does this mean? Who wrote it? Maya hesitated. "I think it's from Mr. Carter, but there's more. My brother works in the main office, he found out your father's planning to pull you out of school today." The words hit like a punch. If that was true, whatever this secret was, he might never hear it. Suddenly the mirror wasn't just glass. It felt like a barrier, holding back the one thing he needed to change his life. He looked at Maya, then back at his reflection. "I have to find him now." But as they stepped into the hallway, the lights flickered, and a shadow moved at the far end. Someone was already waiting for them. The shadow at the end of the hall stepped forward, and for a heartbeat the boy thought it was his father's security team. But as it came closer, he saw Mr. Carter's calm, steady face. "I had to make sure you were ready," he said quietly, as if the tense moments had been part of the lesson all along. Without a word, Mr. Carter led him to the empty classroom at the end of the corridor. There, instead of a lecture or a textbook, he handed the boy a single worn notebook. "The secret isn't about memorizing facts," Mr. Carter said. "It's about understanding yourself, your fears, your failures, and your strengths. Everything you've avoided feeling is in here. Learn it, and you'll see how to succeed on your own terms." The boy flipped through the pages and found stories, strategies, and reflections, all written from someone who had once struggled like him. Slowly he began to understand. School, grades, even his father's expectations, none of it mattered. If he didn't believe in himself, every failure was a lesson, every challenge a chance to grow. Armed with this new perspective, he faced his midterms with clarity he'd never felt before. One by one, the red marks on his papers were replaced by passing grades. Not because someone taught him answers, but because he finally knew how to find them himself. Just as he was catching his breath, Maya tugged on his sleeve, pointing toward the doorway. There, leaning against the wall, was a letter addressed to him in his father's handwriting. But when he opened it, the words weren't what he expected. Instead of reprimands or praise, it read, "I've already made my move. Are you ready to lead?" The boy froze, heart racing. This was no longer about school. It was about everything, and the real journey was only beginning. The boy sank into the chair, letter in hand, feeling the weight of everything shift. The fear that had shadowed him for so long was still there, but it was tempered now by a new sense of purpose. Mr. Carter stood quietly, watching him with a knowing smile. "You see," he said softly, "success isn't about being perfect or getting every answer right. It's about showing up, facing what scares you, and learning along the way." Over the next few weeks, everything changed. The boy approached his studies differently, not as a series of tests to pass, but as opportunities to understand and grow. His grades improved, but more importantly, his confidence did. He started helping classmates, including Maya, sharing the lessons he'd learned from Mr. Carter. The whispers that had once embarrassed him became conversations of curiosity and respect. At home, his father noticed a change. There were no dramatic confrontations, no lectures, just quiet acknowledgement. Slowly, the boy realized that leadership wasn't about wealth or status. It was about responsibility, insight, and the courage to keep going when everyone else doubts you. On the last day of school, the boy returned to the storage room where it had all